White Fang from 1991. So this is directed by Randall Kleiser. Ethan Hawke starred in it, along with Jed, who played the dog. The dog actually was also in The Thing. He played so he's a pretty famous dog actor of the time. The IMDb plot summary is Jack London's classic adventure story about the friendship developed between a Yukon gold hunter and a mixed dog wolf he rescues from the hands of a man who mistreats him. Now, this is a film for me that really helped, similar to what you were talking about with 101 Dalmatians, helped me really identify with the dog and really give the dog as much of an importance in this film as the human characters did. The dog isn't just a pet or an extension of something the humans are trying to do. The dog has agency. The dog has his own personality and thrust to the plot. He's just as much of a main character. And it really helped me realize that, we're all animals. Humans are animals, dogs are animals. And that we're all kind of on that same level. It also was a movie, plot summary mentioned, based on a Jack London story, which this movie actually inspired me as a young kid when I saw this to read a lot of Jack London. And a lot of his stories are with the dogs as the center character, White Fang, which this movie takes a lot of liberties with, nothing like the book. The dog is more of the main character in the book. And then Call the Wild, and all this about what, the dog is given an inner monologue. The dog's thinking about how they relate to society that is like human society versus animal society. And it's a lot about their place just in the ecosystem and in the world. And I think this movie, at least the dog scenes, do a very good job of that. There's the beginning of the movie, there are no humans in it. When you see White Fang as a puppy, it's shot sort of like a nature documentary where the dogs exist on their own. There are no humans there. The dogs are just living and surviving. They're not seen as pets or seen as any relation to humans. They exist completely separate, much like dogs did, thousands of years ago when they were before, we kind of became man's best friend. So I really kind of identified this. I mean, I think identified with that. And then the human comes into it too. And there's a lot of, interactions between Ethan Hawke's character and White Fang. White Fang, though, again, is not, I don't really think this movie treats him as a pet to Ethan Hawke. He's just they're more like co-leads. White Fang's got his own story arc, and so did Ethan Hawke. And it's interesting, again, the Ethan Hawke character is not in the book. It's interesting what they do with this character too, where it's like Ethan Hawke is coming from civilization into the wild, and in the end he chooses to stay in the wild, and this is what he likes, and this is how he feels at home. And White Fang is coming from the wild into then human civilization, and in the end he realizes he wants to stay with Ethan Hawke and wants to stay in civilization as opposed to go back into the Yukon. I think I just always liked that parallel there, and really. To me, like, again, the big takeaway, and something that really did leave an impression on me when I saw this as a kid in theater and then a couple times on TV and VHS, was the fact that, the animals are human too, in a way. We have this idea now of, I don't know if you've heard of like the Bechdel test, which is something for female characters where they're female characters in a film. And the test is, do they talk amongst themselves and talk about things that are not men? And I think what this movie does so well, it's like a Bechdel test for dogs in a way. Like White Fang's, a lot of his adventures, a lot of what happens to him really has nothing to do with humans. He has his own agency. And that is really how I looked at dogs. When I got my dog growing up and I have my dog now, I really don't feel like they're pets. You were talking about it earlier with 101 Dalmatians too. Like they're part of the family, and they're really, we're just different animals. We coexist on the same level. Upon rewatch, I mean, the movie is not great. I wouldn't say this is a great movie or even adaptation of White Fang. I mean, when I went off and read the book as a kid, I'm like, wow, this book is so much better than that movie. But this movie, again, did leave an impression on me. And I did get a lot of those same themes after watching this, which I had not seen in 30 years of this film. And, again, I don't think it really holds up as a film, but these themes still do come across. And it's something that really impacted me a lot as a kid. And then also now just with animals in general, but specifically dogs.
Yeah. I never watched this movie before. I think I'd heard of it. So it was good to kind of watch this movie. I actually quite enjoyed it. Maybe I went in with tempered expectations and, the movie drags and such in various places, but it's actually made quite beautifully in many ways. Like the scale of the movie, you are transported to this beautiful place, Alaska and what have you. It's shot pretty well. And
Yeah,
like you
it actually is.
said, scenes are quite compelling. So I thought it was actually quite good in many ways. But yeah, the piece that you talked about really struck me as well, that dogs have their own agency in this movie. And
Mhm.
you really see kind of the challenging the challenges that come up with these two beings coming together.
Mhm.
There's a lot of drama that happens where wolves are attacking humans, and then humans are attacking them, and people are getting shot and killed and wounded and what have you. There's like a lot of tension that happens. So you kind of, by the end of the movie, this relationship between these two equals feels
Mhm.
very earned to me, as opposed to just man coming in and saying, oh, I'm going to buy you from the shop and you're going
Right.
to be now my pet. No, it's not that. Like, this relationship is really earned. And I can only imagine how much better and vivid the book might have been, the way you're describing it. So maybe I'll read this book at some point. And it was fun to watch Ethan Hawke young, in that time frame. He's just so great, and you can still see all his mannerisms and cheekiness and all of it very, very apparent at that young age as well. So it
Yeah.
was fun to see that.
Yeah, it was now I'm bringing an Ethan Hawke movie in here. I feel like you've done that a
Right.
couple times in the podcast. Now, now this is mine. But yeah, I think he did a great job. And again, that dog actor, I think, is fantastic as well. And I also thought it was interesting in the beginning of the film when they had the no animals, or the big message before the movie starts, like
Right.
all the animals are actors, nothing, no animals were harmed, no one was in harm's way, which it's nice to see, because there's, a scene when he fights like a bear. And I'm like, how is the bear actor doing this? How is the dog doing this? Like, this is just amazing. Definitely not I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Milo and Otis. Don't watch it. And for anyone at home, if you love that movie listening, do not go on the Wikipedia page and read about how this movie was made. This movie, though, I think is a response to that, in terms of like everything is fine, animals are fine. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I mean, I think the strengths of this film, like you said, are just it's great cinematography, all natural locations in the Yukon, really does transport you to that time period. But yeah, still, I think it's kind of average to middling overall. But glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.